I will tell about my novel Laurus in the context of modern Russian literature. What is modern Russian literature today? What had happened in the 90s? It was a difficult period because the periods of catastrophes, of wars. In these epochs, literature is not on the stage. Literature has, in a certain sense, a competition with journalism. Literature is not a winner in this competition. Literature is slow and clumsy. Literature needs a distance. You will remember that the best novel about the war of 1812, a war against Napoleon, I mean War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, it was written and published in 1869. That newspaper measures a temperature, and literature gives a diagnosis. Now we have a sort, I would name it stability in our country. So literature likes silence. Silence not as material of writing, but silence as the circumstances of writing. We have a new spirit now. It is, so to say, the social dimension of modern literature. Thrillers, fantasies, love burgers, and so on are not as popular as it was 15, 20 years ago. And now we have so-called serious literature as bestseller. It is something new. Modernity is over. What I mean? Literature and the culture as a whole celebrate the finishing of the modernity. Modernity not not to mix with modernism or postmodernism. Modernity, it is a great epoch that came after the Middle Ages. Modernity in literature came among other things with the printing. Actually, what did Gutenberg make? He stopped the movement of the text, because the text of the medieval literature is amorphous. If, for example, we medievalists publish some old Russian and not only Russian or the English text and so on, normally we publish not one variant, not one verse, but all the variants. Why? Because in the contrary to the literature of new time of modernity, we have no main text. All the texts are equal. The main text, the main variant, it is the idea of modernity. This text without borders and the text without end, without the end, was stopped by printing. But now we live in the time when text is amorphous. See the texts of internet, we will see that they are endless. The texts now are fragmentary, as it was in the Middle Ages. The idea of borrowing was not a crime as now. The texts had no owners. The text belonged only to God, and people borrowed it from God. Now we have copyright. Now all these borrowings are strictly forbidden. Borrowings are everywhere. These borrowings is a sort of play that has a name of postmodernism. And that is why Roland Barthes said about the death of the author. The death of the author means not that author will not come and receive his royalty. No, it is if we will see how many borrowings are there in the modern text, we will understand that really he is not, the author is not the author in the sense, in traditional sense. Fragmentarian structure of the text we can also see in modern literature, like to the borrowings of the Middle Ages. So what I say as a summary, I'm sure that modernity is over and that we have a new Middle Ages in culture. It is not Middle Ages in serious sense. Maybe it is a metaphor in a certain sense. But what I wanted to say, that we have many things, many features in our literature that existed in the Middle Ages. I will say a few words about my novel Laurus. It was declared sometimes a postmodernist text, a postmodernist novel. It is not so. As a scholar that had to do with Middle Ages, I had a sort of professional deformation. And Middle Ages were known for me maybe better than modernity. And I tried to translate some things from modern language into medieval language, from medieval language into modern language. I mixed modernity with the Middle Ages. I used modern literary tools to write, for example, a vita, life of the saint. Vita, it is a very interesting genre. The texts are more exciting than Harry Potter. My advice to read hagiography, to read Vita, to understand our predecessors. I would not say that Laurus is a historical novel. Laurus is not about the history. Laurus is about modern time. But we can describe modern time in different ways. One way is to describe what we have in our modern time. Another way is to describe what we lack today, what would be useful to remember. For example, the eternal love and or fidelity, or some things that are maybe not so popular today, but for human being are very important. I tried to show modernity, to show modern epoch through the eyes of the medieval people. Actually, it was a risky business to write a novel Laurus, because the positive protagonist it is a great problem. It is a headache for the literature. I can't remember that positive protagonists would be very popular. The only exception is maybe Dostoevsky's Prince Myshkin. I am not Dostoevsky, that is why I understood that it is a huge risk for me to write about the good. I ran to the Middle Ages, to 15th century, because if I would write about my neighbors, about the people that are walking in the street, if I would describe them as saints, it would be not a simple task to depict a good man of modern time. I was sure that it would not be popular, this book, because it is so far from modern time and modern style of life. But it was surprising that this book was read, that this book helped somebody. I received many letters and calls. I'm sure that 20 years ago this book wouldn't be popular. And now, through postmodernism, we came to medieval poetics. It is very interesting because postmodernism, he used to laugh all the way, but now it's not laughing. Now postmodernism is quite serious, and maybe it is not postmodernism at all now. We are witnesses of the changing epoch. Writers, and not only writers, the people of art, they feel these changes. A very important protagonist in Laurus is language. This novel is a language from 11th to 21st century. It is a portrait of the Russian language, of the whole life of Russian language. And in a certain sense, this novel is a novel about the language. My novel declares that time doesn't exist. The background of the time and of all our life is eternity. All these things wouldn't be interesting, I repeat, 20 years ago. But now these questions are really interesting to my readers. I know what I speak about. Sometimes as I speak about these things abroad, I receive a question. If everything is so good and so hopeful in modern Russian literature, where are or when will come new Tolstoys and Dostoevskys? And I answer in the only possible way: soon.